It's always nice to be reunited with those you love. A friend who you haven't seen in a while, a long-distance partner, a family member who moved away from work, even a YouTuber whose schedule is more of a suggestion rather than a set rule. Whether it's for good times or bad, often reunions are a subject of joy and involve a well-cooked meal. For such is the joy of our reunion. Also, for the record, you should be eating while watching this video. Stop what you're doing and grab some pot noodles or something. Nicknamed the City of Countless Stoves, Baizhou is the capital of Yan, the largest and most important city in the entire country. The very embodiment of Yanese law and order. From its towering walls to its impressive palaces, to its institutions of learning and justice. The city of Baizhou is a sight to behold. The city's foundation is traced back to a great war in the country's past. A great originium vein was discovered in the aftermath of that war, and such was its bounty that catastrophes sprung up in the 100 kilometers surrounding the area. The leader of Yan, the true Lung of the time, ordered for the construction of Baizhou above the vein. Yan created the city after 53 years of construction. Baizhou meaning to tend all cooking stoves under heaven. As such, cooking became a staple of the society that grew within Baizhou. Countless restaurants and food stalls can be found across Baizhou, and at the pinnacle of them all are the 4 great restaurants, the oldest and most popular in Baizhou, representing the 4 main cuisines from across Yan, the respective North, South, East, and West restaurants. We only see the northern one, Ding Fen Lao. It is said that one man founded all 4 great restaurants when the city of Baizhou was in its infancy. Although his name is lost to time, his presence can still be felt in the cooking he left behind. Or, if you venture off the beaten path, you may stumble upon Savor at Yu's, a modest restaurant run by one of the Sui siblings, Yu. I'm not beating around the bush any further. Yu founded the great restaurants, and has been chilling in Baizhou ever since. Well, in between searching for ingredients to feed his siblings. 6 months after the departure of Chongye from Yumen, and 3 months following the demonic invasion of Daheng in Here Are People's Souls, the country of Yan is preparing for one of its most important festivals. Within the capital of Yan, the people prepare for the Feast of 100 Delicacies. Held in mid-autumn, the true Lung, ruler of all of Yan, invites the mandarins to discuss the state of Yan, its people, its policies, its enemies, but most importantly, it is a celebration of the embodiment of Yan, the true Lung's birthday. However, this year it falls on the 40th anniversary of an infamous day, the execution of those who sought to overthrow the true Lung. Hopefully, I get the timeline of this correct, but I'm sure one of you will correct me if I mess it up. During the reign of the previous true Lung, the once noble leader contracted erypathy. Now infected, his policies began to become more and more biased. It's not specified what it became biased towards, but I imagine he was giving infected rights. As such, a coup was organized. Yan Wu, the next in line for the throne, the Grand Preceptor, one of the 3 highest ranked officials under the True Lung, and the current True Lung, plotted to overthrow the previous True Lung. To aid in this, the current True Lung sought the guidance of one of the Sui fragments, Wang. With Wang's strategy in hand, the trio set their plan in motion. Yan Wu entered the Imperial Palace with Qi Zhao in hand. Whether or not he struck down his own father is left ambiguous, but either way, he took 18 Imperial guards and fled the capital. If you are enjoying this as some nice background noise, you would have missed that Yan Wu is a figure we know well. Wei Yan Wu, the uncle of Chen and Tallulah, having taken over the autonomous land of Lungmen since leaving the capital following the death of his father. In the resulting chaos, the current True Lung was appointed to the position despite his desire for his brother to take up the post. But the reality of a coup could not be ignored. The True Lung could not be implicated in the crime, so scapegoats were found. No crisis should be wasted, so the True Lung took the opportunity presented to punish those with ill intent towards his rule. Most were innocent of the crime they were accused of, but stability needed to be maintained. So the Grand Preceptor was blamed for the entire event and her whole family was to be executed, except for the actions of one Gu Sheng, her entire family would have been erased. Daring to show his support for the Grand Preceptor, he stumbled upon the destruction that had brought down her family. There was but one survivor, a baby girl. Gu Sheng took the child along with his wife and newborn baby and fled the capital, but they were intercepted by an imperial guard. The guard was a good man and one who loved the Grand Preceptor, and so took the child of Gu Sheng back to Baizhou with him, so that the Grand Preceptor's child may live. The child of Gu Sheng was handed over to the then Minister of Justice. Unfortunately, that minister's involvement in the death of the Grand Preceptor had earned him the ire of some of her silent supporters. Ningxu, the High Minister of the Ministry of Rights, hired an assassin to enact justice upon this minister. Thus did the child of Gu Sheng end up in his care. Ningyin, also known as Xingzhu. But what of the Grand Preceptor's child? Well, she ended up in Victoria. Gu Zhuhong, better known as Rhodes Island's elite operator, Blaze. We've set up the background for most of the important characters, but one remains. Lazy, or Ling Xingyang. She gets involved in this particular story because of the actions of her old mentor, Yu Sheng, a former deputy minister of the Judicial Review Office. While once a respected minister, he had been disgraced due to the actions of Lazy. She had discovered that he had fabricated evidence in order to get convictions against corrupt officials. This would of course get him fired and arrested. Lazy was not fully convinced by his apparent abandonment of justice, so began privately looking into the last case that her mentor worked on, the murder of a minister in 1062. 30 years after the murder, Yu Cheng had accused Ningxu of being the one responsible for the murder. Yu Cheng believed that Ningxu had organized the death of Gu Quan, known to us a few moments ago as Gu Sheng, as a way to cover up his part in the assassination. Unfortunately, due to being discredited and Ningxu being of suitably high rank, no investigation was launched into Yu Cheng's accusations. Lazy, however, had found a missing lead during her time in Rhodes Island, the daughter of Gu Quan, Blaze. As such, Lazy brings Blaze to Baizhou so that she may finally unravel the mystery behind the death of Gu Quan and the corruption of Ningxu. Most of the twists and turns I have already revealed to you in the course of setting this whole thing up, so you'll forgive me if I somewhat breeze past it when discussing the story proper. With that, I do believe we can finally dive into the events of such is the joy of our reunion. Blaze is informed by Lazy about the suspicious circumstances surrounding the death of her father, and as such, decides to travel to Baizhou with her to unravel the truth. A stipulation set up by Lazy is that Blaze is to follow 3 simple rules. 1. Be wary of strangers. 2. Don't tell anyone you're infected. And 3. Don't tell anyone about her father. Blaze, of course, being Blaze, immediately begins ignoring these rules because she gets bored. As such, she immediately heads out looking for some good food. This results in her stumbling upon Saver at Yu's. Here, she immediately breaks Rule 1 and almost breaks Rule 3, but manages to stop herself just in time. Blaze decides to treat herself to some snacks. She orders enough so that she can freely share with those she's sharing a table with. Blaze, while caught up in the moment, eats a tangerine cake that Xingzhu had ordered. After doing so, she comments on how they don't taste quite like how she remembers them tasting, saying the sweet ones her father used to send her tasted better. She is unaware that even slightly bad-mouthing the food here activates the Dark Souls boss that is Yu. Jiang, Yu's assistant chef, attempts to defuse the situation by claiming that Blaze only said the tangerine cakes were different, but Blaze doubles down by insulting Yu's cooking. Yu is rather furious at having his cooking skills insulted by Blaze and sets forth a bet. She is to find a shop that serves better tangerine cakes than his. If she fails, then she must apologize to Yu 100 times, but should she succeed, then she can eat for free for a month, and Yu must teach her how to cook. Following the establishment of the deal, Xingzhu approaches Blaze, revealing herself to be a local food critic, who has been writing about the Baizhou culinary scene. She is interested in those sweet tangerine cakes and offers her services as a guide. Blaze readily agrees, and the two arrange to meet. Lazy during all of this has been at the Judicial Review Office. A massive fire burnt down the scrollery and over 70,000 case files have been destroyed as a result. Yu Cheng has confessed to the deed and is being questioned by Chen Che. She is in complete denial in regards to his guilt, as Yu Cheng was in prison at the time of the arson. Nevertheless, she is unable to get him to retract his confession. Jie Zhen, a member of Yan's Department of Discipline and Supervision, raises the possibility of Yu Cheng having some form of mental illness, and Chen takes the opportunity to put an end to the day's proceedings. Following a quick conversation with Jie, Leslie accompanies Chen into the ruins of the Scroller Ring. Leslie speculates that it was likely an inside job. The culprit likely knew Kung Fu and had intricate knowledge of the layout of the Scroller Ring. Chen remains unconvinced. She recalls the last case of Yu Cheng was the murder of the Minister of Justice, and how Yu Cheng had accused Ning Shu of being the culprit. Leslie speculates that the case was also related to the death of Gu Quan, but Chen Che advises her to stay out of it for her own good. That evening, Leslie is less than pleased with Blaze's decision to leave the apartment she was left in. As such, the next morning, Leslie locks Blaze in the room. Leslie makes her way to the home of Ning Shu in order to get some answers on the situation surrounding Gu Quan. Coincidentally, at the same time, Liang Jun was visiting Ning Shi Chu. Liang has been promoted from Magistrate of Shangshu to Advisor of Yumen. Glad to see the story of these two lovebirds is continuing in the backgrounds of these Sui events. They won't be that relevant this event, but I wanted to mention them for one particular scene later. During her meeting with Ning Shu, Lazy questions the old man on his relationship with Gu Quan. She finds it suspicious that someone of such low rank was promoted to Yanni's envoy and sent to Victoria. Ning Shu deflects this rather well by telling her that it was Gu Quan who requested the transfer. He was sick and wished to spend the rest of his life in his hometown. Lazy is not completely convinced, but gives up for now. As she leaves the estate, she is stopped by the junior drill master, an Imperial Guard who I wish I could give a proper name to, but this is all she's addressed by this event. The woman questions Lazy on her intentions, but inevitably lets her go about her business. Lazy takes the questioning as proof that she's on the right track. Blaze, meanwhile, is late for her meeting with Xing Zhu. Unwilling to break down the door to escape her room, she jumps from the 18th floor instead, a much better option, conveniently landing in front of the woman she's looking for. Xing Zhu brings Blaze on a tour of the city. Together, they sample many tangerine cakes, but are unable to find one matching Blaze's memories. Just after giving up, Yu, who has been following them all day, jumps out and proclaims his victory. Xing Shu manages to convince the duo to call off their bet and work together to find the tangerine cake recipe. That way, Blaze can find the tangerine cakes and Yu can learn a new recipe. Spoiling it now, Yu does not learn a new recipe, but Blaze does eventually find those tangerine cakes. Yu says that if anyone other than himself would know of the recipe, it would be Mo Bufu, head chef of Ding Feng Lao. Mo Bufu is busy preparing for the Feast of 100 Delicacies, and fortunately for Blaze, they are short-staffed at the moment. As such, Yu decides to teach Blaze how to cook so that she may get an opportunity to ask Mo Bufu about the recipe directly. The next day, as Blaze is beginning her training arc, Lazy infiltrates Bai Zhao Academy so that she may gain access to the archives. She's searching for information on Gu Quan from his time in the academy. Unfortunately, the academy contains nothing in regards to Gu Quan. She is discovered in her act of not quite breaking and entering by one Professor Jing, the mother of Zhou Le. Convinced not to turn her over to the authorities, Jing offers Lazy some guidance, and with that little bit of a help, she discovers that Gu Quan isn't his original name. It's Gu Sheng. However, even with his true name, his files have gone missing, and the only people who could do that worked at the Ministry of Justice, specifically on death row. Blaze's training arc is going relatively poorly. Yu has decided that she will have to master the art of cooking longevity noodles, a simple dish which is used to celebrate one's birthday. As the True Lung's birthday is coming up at the feast, this is the easiest way for her to get access to the kitchen. Yu puts on a masterclass performance with his noodles, but Blaze can't quite replicate it. Her Originium oats dry the noodles out before they can properly be prepared, and adding more water or flour after the fact is just bandaging a failed batch. Luckily, with help from Xingzhu, things progressed smoothly. Blaze is reminded of the other elite operators celebrating her birthday with her, and as such, she remains motivated, finally succeeding by dipping her hands into ice-cold water so that her body temperature didn't dry out the noodles. This allows her to pass Yu's test, and she's allowed to enter the competition. Coincidentally, on the day of the competition, both Blaze and Lazy are in the same place. Lazy is investigating and Blaze is cooking. Unfortunately, in order to get a chance to meet Mo Bufu, she is going to have to pass a few tests. First, she has to identify the ingredients in tea, which she manages to pass with some luck. Secondly, she needs to identify the history of a Yanni's dish. Xingzhu is convinced she will fail at this step, but luckily for Blaze, she picks a dish that her father had told her about. The Medley of Whites, a dish the former Grand Preceptor presented to the true Lung of the time to teach them of the importance of all of Yan's citizens. Mo Bofu is impressed by her correctly answering the question and allows Blaze to cook for him. She of course prepares him some longevity noodles, the same ones that Yu taught her. Instead of being impressed, Bofu flies into a rage. He is well aware of who Yu is and views him sending an amateur to cook for him as a grave insult. As such, he storms off, with Blaze rushing after him to ask about the tangerine cakes. Bofu tells her that blindly adding sugar to tangerine cakes is a feeble attempt at masking poor cooking skills. Just then, a fire breaks out in the kitchen. With her quick reflexes, Blaze manages to save Bufu. Lazy then arrives on the scene to escort the two away. She chases after the arsonist but fails to apprehend them. After getting to a safe location, Lazy reveals why she is there. Mo Bufu was the chef serving last meals on death row when Gu Quan was imprisoned. Bufu reveals that Gu Quan was in prison for serving the medley of whites to the True Lung. Angered by this blatant support for one who plotted against him, the True Lung sentenced Gu Quan to death. Luckily for him, two people remained in contact with him, Yu Sheng and Ning Shu, with Ning Shu being the one who got Gu Quan released from prison. Before their questions can get anywhere important, Chen Che appears to put a stop to it. Slightly random intermission here, but Yan Wu is relevant again. As part of this year's Feast of 100 Delicacies, the True Lung has invited Wei Yanwu to Baizhou. Fumuzuki tries to talk him out of it, but to no avail. Is this story relevant? No, not really. It's very much story setup for the next Tui event. Could they have more elegantly integrated it into the story? Probably. But you're getting the same jump scare I got while reading the event. Chen Che drags Lazy back to the judicial office, where she yet again warns her about getting involved with the Minister of Justice case, ending her warning by reminding her that the continued investigation would result in Chen Che being unable to protect Lazy or Blaze. As such, when Lazy finally leaves her discussion with Chen and gets to meet with Blaze, she announces that the investigation into the minister is solved and that there are no more loose ends, giving Blaze the government-mandated line in regards to Gu Quan. Blaze is of course upset by this sudden change within Lazy, but Lazy isn't in the mood to debate her on it. In the meantime, Mo Bufu attempts to meet with Yu. However, the chef wants to avoid him, leaving Jiang to deal with the man instead. Bufu suspects that Yu is simply hiding from him, but nevertheless decides to tell the story about how he became a chef. 30 years ago, a catastrophe struck his village. They attempted to head for Baizhou, but another group of people started pursuing them, be they bandits or other refugees. When all hope seemed lost and starvation was going to claim them, a chef appeared. In an old temple, a lone man was cooking noodles, disappearing after everyone had eaten their full. Accepting that he won't meet Yu that day, he simply tells Jiang that Blaze passed the test and that she will be taken on in Dingfeng Lao. Shortly afterwards, a dejected Blaze stumbles into the restaurant, where she finds that Xingzhu had left a note inviting her to the Ning estate. Upon Blaze's arrival, Xingzhu reveals her identity as Ning Yin, the adopted daughter of Ning Shu. She reveals to Blaze that her father once worked in the Ning Manor as a transcriber. She first met him on her 15th birthday. She'd snuck away from the party to read in peace. She entered Ning Shu's study and found Gu Quan stuffing papers into his pockets. He claims that this was due to being behind on work, but it was also likely due to him investigating Ning Shu. Regardless, a young Ning Yin accepts his reasoning. As a gift for her birthday, Gu Quan offers Yin 2 copybooks. Although she wouldn't know it yet, this was the first time her father wished her a happy birthday. Over the next few years, she rarely had a chance to talk to him, and the next time she did, he was already sick, literally bumping into him and knocking the painkillers out of his pocket. Gu Quan was in a hurry though, so didn't stick around to get them back. Yin asked the family physician to look after the man, but by the time she next speaks to the physician, Gu Quan had gone on his fateful trip back to Victoria. Ning Yin asked Blaze to not give up hope and to continue her quest for truth. With her motivation restored, Blaze heads out to find Lazy. Lazy had been having a crisis of consciousness and discusses it with Ji Zhen. The man questions her knowledge of Yu Sheng. What could have made a man who embodied justice turn to the methods he used? What truth did he uncover that would cause him to jeopardize his career? We of course know it's the truth behind the case of the Grand Preceptor, and Ji Zhen is leading Lazy to that conclusion, telling her that her fear of implicating Blaze is unfounded and is clouding her judgment. With this bit of motivation, Lazy hands in her resignation from the judicial department. Blaze and Lazy combine their knowledge and decide that the most logical next step is to take their concerns to the True Long, the man who has the answers to their remaining questions. The Feast of 100 Delicacies has arrived, and Liang Zhun is escorting Ning Shichu. The lovebirds are sure to enjoy an uneventful night. Blaze meanwhile has taken up Mo Gufu's offer and become one of his apprentice chefs. Using that as a basis, she sneaks Lazy into the royal palace's kitchen. The evil Sui are moving in the background during this event. Ji meets with Zhou Le. Ji is rather ominous, but implies that the fate of the Sui is in Zhou Le's hands. More foreshadowing for next year's event, I fear. Lazy meanwhile is infiltrating the dining hall, being saved from the guards by Ning Yin, although that would only work once. Just as the feast is about to start, a great fire breaks out, spreading through the courtyard with what is described as demonic flames. And look at that CG for a minute. That is a goddamn dragon. It is, however, not Wang's doing as I originally thought. It's Liang's. He set the fire to delay the Grand Commandant's plan of forcing war with the Ferenmut. A risky move, but a calculated one. In the chaos, Blaze is forced to flee the kitchen in search of Lazy. She runs into Ning Yin, who swaps clothes with Blaze to allow her to escape. No, we don't get sprites for this, so that is a missed opportunity. Ning Yin is pretty quickly found by an Imperial guard and knocked out. Likewise, Blaze is confronted by the junior drill master. The drill master reveals to Blaze that she is the Grand Preceptor's daughter. This of course takes Blaze off guard and throws off her ability to fight. Luckily, before she can be captured, Lazy comes to her rescue, using her lightning to knock Blaze out of the palace. Lazy is quickly detained, but before they can find Blaze, she is rescued by Yu, who happened to be passing by. Blaze, of course, immediately tries to go back to the palace to rescue Lazy, but Yu stops her. He knows the tangerine cake recipe that she's looking for. He reveals that Gu Quan was a regular at his place. Gu Quan would ask Yu to add a bunch of sugar to preserve the cakes so that they could be sent to his wife and daughter in Victoria. In fact, before he left for Victoria, he got one last order of tangerine cakes. Ning Yin, who had been taken back to the Ning estate by the Imperial Guard, discovers a book not found in Yan's history, one detailing the deceptions of Ning Shu. Ning Shu had decided that enough time had passed, and it was time to reveal the truth of the situation to Ning Yin and all of Yan. So he goes to meet with Yu Cheng, turning himself over to the justice system. Ning Yin, however, was told of how she came to be his adopted daughter, which we covered earlier, but for completion's sake, he had the minister who betrayed the Grand Preceptor assassinated. Here we learn why Gu Quan returned to Baizhou. It was never to get justice for the Grand Preceptor. He wished to find his daughter, which allows Ning Yin to realize she is his biological daughter, and she runs off to find Blaze. Saber at Yu's is in a rather interesting position, being very close to the Ning estate, with a window that would allow one to watch their daughter growing up from a distance, which is why Yu has set Blaze up in the same seat Gu Quan always used, reuniting the two sisters. Blaze is fully motivated to get the answers he seeks from the True Long and decides to return to the palace, reinvigorated by the discovery of a long-lost sister. As Yu says, reunion is the sweetest taste of them all. While imprisoned, Lazy is visited by Jie Zhen, who reveals that he was Yu Cheng's collaborator. He had long known of Blaze's existence. After all, he had been the one who arranged for her to be sent to Rhodes Island. He even laid the breadcrumbs for Lazy to follow. Freeing Lazy, the two join Blaze in confronting the junior drillmaster. As the battle is reaching its climax, the True Long signals for the palace's defenses to be lowered. As such, Blaze is allowed to enter the palace and have an audience with the True Long. Presenting him with a bowl of longevity noodles, she is finally able to question him about the death of her mother. It was an act made necessary by the situation at hand. His father was dead, his older brother had fled the capital, something had to give to stabilize the country. A purge of traitors. The Grand Preceptor, one of his most loyal companions, was made the scapegoat. By taking the fall, she legitimized his reign. Blaze asks him if he regrets his actions. In his heart, he regrets that things had to come to that, but is unable to voice such thoughts. The True Long must never admit mistake. Blaze knows this too, and simply asks him to never forget those who sacrificed themselves for the country. Yu has prepared a special meal, one that he shall deliver personally. He entrusts Savior at Yu's to Jiang should he not return. Here we learn that Jiang is one of the Sui regulators like Shorley, and that he has been traveling with Yu for years. Yu has rarely, if ever, used the gifts of the Sui heritage, and as such worries that if he becomes the beast that Sui is, he'll forget the taste of humanity. Rather interestingly, it's only after this conversation that Yu is referred to as Yu in the text. Before this point, he was referred to as Young Chef. He heads to a dilapidated temple where he finds his most important customer, his brother Wang. Yu has prepared an entire feast for Wang, accompanied with a special bowl of soup containing the regrets of Yu. He had long dreamed of the reunion of all the Sui siblings, but such a thing was nothing more than a dream. Jie was dead, and Wang had set himself upon a different path. All Yu could do was offer his aid to Wang in his battle against the Sui, hoping that should he be successful, then the Sui siblings might finally have a true family reunion. Leaving Yu behind, Wang heads for the tomb of the Sui. At the same time, the True Long issues a decree. 70% of Bai Zhao's power is to be used to open the tomb. The True Long pardons Wang, and within his thoughts, pardons the Grand Preceptor and his older brother, Yan Wu. Wang and Ji arrive at the tomb of Sui, escorted by the Imperial Guard. Ji hands Wang the items they have gathered: Chongye's sword, Shu's seeds, and Yu's soup. With them in hand, overthrowing Sui doesn't seem impossible. Wang hopes that he will finally avenge their fallen sister. Nian, Dusk, and Ling from across Yan recognize what Wang is doing and prepare for their return so that they may have a true family reunion. And thus is the stage set for the final battle with Sui. However, that will be in the next Sui event, if all goes as I imagine it will. But that is not the end of our discussion just yet. The last story node is basically all set up for next year's event. Ya, the Faranmut that attacked Yumen, is confronted by the old Tianchi. 5 Faranmut aside from Sui have begun to move within Yan. It's likely that Yan will have more to deal with than just Sui when the final battle comes. Waifu and Li are also searching for Wai Tianpei. He has been missing for a while following his battle with Chongye in Yumen. His mind has been overtaken by something. Likely the Sui power within the sword Chongye gave him. Somehow that blade has entered Ji and Wang's possession, so we are likely missing something that has happened to him in this time. Finally, Wei arrived outside Bai Zhao. Here he is confronted by his niece Chen. She has traveled to Bai Zhao to see how Wei unravels the past that has entangled his entire life. As you can tell by the rapid fire plot hooks, there is some stuff that needs to be resolved come next year's events. Hopefully they aren't biting off more than they can chew, although considering that they have been mostly good with the Sui events as long as you ignore everything before Vonal wins, I do have faith in them. And that, dear lore enjoyers, is such is the joy of our reunion. It's pretty cool. I want to say it's my favorite of the Sui sibling events. It's between it and Hero People Souls. And maybe it's recency bias, but I'm leaning towards such is the joy of our reunion currently. I wasn't a particularly big Lazy fan going into this event, and the end of the event and what she did during the event, it's kinda sold me on her. I may in fact be excited to see what they do with her in the future. Blaze has always been great, and even though I didn't get her in my polls, I don't hold that against her. I wasn't really sure how to feel about them tying her into the Sui events, but they did it really well. Although she's probably not going to be relevant to the next Sui event, which is a bit of a shame. And speaking of the Sui, Yu is very cool. It's become pretty apparent now after as many Sui events as we've had, but the Sui are never the main focus. Not really. They're always kind of secondary characters, or characters that develop alongside the cast. And that's pretty cool. Yu in this event serves as a mentor, but also serves as a youngest sibling trying to hold a family that they really don't have any access to together. It's probably why he so strongly relates and helps out Blaze and Jingzhu and Lazy. It's because he can see their desire for a family reunion within himself. He quite literally says that his biggest dream is to have a big family reunion where he can cook everyone's favorite meals. This is of course something that he's not able to do, but it is very much something that weighs heavy on him. I didn't mention it in that kind of wrap-up of the story, but one of the final scenes in this event's story is, after the events of the story obviously, Yu wakes up from a dream where he sees Sui in like a dreamscape and talks to it. And when he wakes up, out of fear that he's suddenly become more close to Sui, he tries eating some food, and realizing that he can still taste it, knows that he's still human. The thing that he's tried to be for all his years since leaving, the Sui itself, is be human, and it's very cool to see it. I really enjoyed him, and even though he wasn't really the main focus of the event, he had really strong character moments. Considering that next year's Sui event is likely to have a lot, or not just a lot, likely to have all the Sui siblings, I don't think he's going to get a lot of focus, but if they can just give him the Sui family dinner, it will make him not having a big role in that next event worth it. I also like Wang. He's just kind of a chill little guy, he's just trying to like revive this demonic dragon and just, take over its power to save his family. It's kind of endearing, but also extremely dangerous, because literally everyone who talks about Sui is like, yeah, it's a giant dragon god, you don't want to mess with it. But I'm sure Wang will succeed and nothing bad will happen to him. As much as it pains me to say it, I might have to go back and reread Invitation to Wine. I know the sacrifices I make to produce these videos. I just want to see how they're writing Wang now versus how they were writing Wang when he was first introduced. I feel like it's changed. I feel like they didn't know exactly what direction they were taking the character in originally, and you know what? That's okay. I'm okay with them evolving their ideas, especially if it gives us a better story in the end. I haven't mentioned it till now, but I apologize if my voice sounds any bit off. I'm actually a bit sick at the minute, so I'm recording this and releasing it while my voice isn't fully there. I wanted this video out before the event ends, so I'm punishing myself by doing this. Shout out to the wonderful members of the factory. You are all real ones. You are the ingredients to my cooking, making sure I deliver a 5-course meal with every video. Y'all, be good people, and I will talk to you in the next one. I don't have a good end video bit. Y'all just be nice to each other.